For those of you just starting out, I will now run through how to complete a discharge summary. The systems that you will use to enter this information will look different depending on the hospital you work in, but the required information will be the same. The extent to which your hospital has implemented electronic health records will determine what information is already pre-populating the summary and how much you will need to enter yourself. All systems will now be providing and requiring standardised information, so everyone receives the same content. Firstly, you should know that you won't need to complete every area of this form. Some of the information will be mandatory, so it is essential that this is all completed. A required field should be recorded if you have the information available, and it is important that it is shared for the safety and care of the patient. For example, the details of a person's discharge from hospital should be entered if they are known. It is your decision whether to complete information that is optional. An example of this could be if you have requested an investigation or procedure. These details would need to be added so the next healthcare professional involved in the patient's care is aware and can follow up on the results. We are now going to look at some of the key information you will need to provide. Here we are looking at the standard patient demographic information. These are examples of mandatory information and must be completed. The patient demographics here, such as name, age and NHS number, must be recorded. Whether or not these are already populated on your system will differ from trust to trust, but all mandatory fields need to be completed. You may be asked to add some information that gives context, such as whether the patient is living alone, what language does the patient speak, and if they need an interpreter. You'll be asked to give information about how they were admitted, how they were discharged. Again, some content may already be populated. As we move through the discharge summary, you will be asked to add in pertinent clinical information. There's been evidence to show that essential information can often be missing from patient records that needs to be shared during discharge. You should pay particular attention to this. Often there is additional information about diagnoses which may not be directly related to the patient's admission, so may not be recorded during the admission, but is important to share for their ongoing care. You need to make sure that in the clinical record, any relevant comorbidities are up to date and recorded. This section is where you enter information about any procedures that were undertaken, as well as any particular investigations you may have requested or carried out. This ensures it's clear to everybody how we've reached the diagnosis and to ensure that we don't repeat anything unnecessarily. The clinical summary is an extremely important part of the discharge form. This information needs to be to the point, but should detail what you find, including any concerns. The summary should only include relevant tests. It is very important that the clinical summary should be really concise, but very clear on all the facts to take forward the care for the patient. You will be asked to add information about the outcome of assessment scales, activities of daily living, cognitive function and so on, as well as any legal information and any safety alerts relating to the patient, such as risks they may pose to themselves or others. This information must be entered if you have it. Medications and allergies is the area where there is most concern about safety risk. You must ensure you have a good handover concerning a patient's medications. This is vital. The same applies for recording allergies. Again, some information may already be populated from your prescribing systems. It is also important to record any information you give to the patient and anyone else involved, such as a carer. Any plans and requested actions for medications that need to be followed up should be entered. This is a legal requirement and you must provide this information as the individual providing the care to the patient. The final section in the form is for your details. It is a mandatory section and it is essential that you enter your name and role along with your professional identifier, for example a GMC or HCPC number. The system will also log the date and time you completed the form. While the information in a discharge is predominantly for the patient's GP, there are also other people involved who need to have access to this information. We now have more services involved in a patient's care, and as we are increasingly working in multidisciplinary teams, in the hospital and out in the community, we need to ensure that this information is being shared with all the relevant professionals. The patient themselves and their carer also have a huge role to play in their continuing improvement and will need to have access to this information. A copy of the discharge summary should be shared and discussed with the patient at the time of discharge.